Hello. Welcome
Hello.
to the True Conscious Couple podcast. I am Tiffany Lancaster.
And I'm Brad Lancaster. We are a blended family. When we got together, I had 4 kids, Tiffany had 3, and we've had 1 together.
We're also a couple that runs a business together.
And so we talk about those things. We talk about our journey of self-discovery, of self-improvement.
We talk about the struggles of blended families. We talk about the struggles of business. And we talk about the struggles of doing inner work.
And we also talk about the joy, the peace, the love that comes along with all of that.
And what makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, so come along for the ride.
Hope you enjoy.
Welcome to our latest episode of the True Conscious Couple.
Could be 25.
Could be 25. Could be 26. I'm not sure. I'm losing track, but it's the next episode. And this is our second part of interviewing one of our kids. And today we're joined by Gabe, my oldest son. Last week we had Trenton, Tiffany's oldest son. And today we have Gabe, my oldest son. I think it's appropriate because Gabe and Trenton are really close. And they were probably, of the 8 children, they were probably the most upfront.
Different.
Well, different, but they were also witness to the most
Oh, yeah.
of our
Probably.
divorce. Like, because you were old enough when I got divorced. You were 10 when I got divorced. You were 11 when Tiff and I got together, 13 when we got married. So you were like very present. So this is the focus of these, Gabe. I don't know if you listened to the last one with Trenton yet. I don't know if it's been published. Oh yeah, it got published. So this podcast has turned into really a blended family podcast, relationship podcast. And so we wanted to talk to all you guys about what it's like growing up in a blended family, what we did well, what we didn't do well, where consciousness comes in, where we talked to Trenton about yoga, and you've been kind of a part of that whole journey with us as well. So, yeah.
Just like I told Trenton, like no holding back, the good and the bad, all of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
the more raw, the better, I think.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because this has served as a great opportunity for Tiff and I to dive even deeper into personal healing. And so, if something comes up, hopefully you're okay with it coming up. And if you're not, that's okay too.
Yeah.
So we'll let Gabe introduce himself and
Tell us
talk
where
about
you
he's
fall in
at
the family, and then also like what your experience was growing up. We asked Trenton to describe his experience growing up with his mom and dad. So tell us about that, your experience growing up before divorce, and then we'll talk after divorce. So that's
Okay.
a lot of stuff.
Okay. Hello. My name is Gabe Lancaster. I got to say, it's funny. I'm nervous. I didn't think I was going to be nervous,
Good.
but I was sitting here and I'm nervous. So talk about being vulnerable. Let everybody know out there. I'm nervous, but it's good. Gabe, my name is Gabe Lancaster. I am technically the second oldest out of all of the kids. But that was the thought that I had when you were saying, describe my experience. I've always felt more like the oldest sibling because my older sister Abby was kind of more disconnected from the whole situation, especially where the blended family was concerned up until a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, she integrated in about 2017 and we were married in 2012. Up until that point, she chose not to participate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She would come every once in a while.
Right.
At first, but then she didn't
Really
come.
separated.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I'm the oldest brother, big brother. That's like definitely my role in the family is being the big brother. I'm everybody's big brother, which is great. It's awesome. Do you want me to introduce myself as far as I work with you guys now or
No,
not?
whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
I work with you guys now. I'm a real estate agent, part of True Agency. I mean, I think that does play a big part in what our family is. At least for me, my experience in being a part of this blended family is I've decided to work in the family business. I've worked in the family business since I was like 16, 15.
Not the first time you junked out of
Yeah,
house.
because I junked out houses and then I was like landscaping crew and yeah. So So describe my experience growing up.
Well, yeah. So we asked Trenton, and I think like tell us about what like.
Yeah, I think your experience was much different, but one of the questions, like, how was your parents' marriage? How was your childhood? Did you see the divorce coming? That sort of thing.
Well, uh, it's funny because I think that whenever I start to talk about like memories of being a child, I don't know how much I'm actually speaking from, right, like truth, like things that actually happen, more just speaking of what I guess the stories I've told myself are, that, what it was like. And so, but I guess that's kind of all that matters.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
memories of memories and memories
yeah,
of stories of memories.
telling stories
Yeah.
and of hearing stories. And so my birth mom and birth dad were together until I was 10 years old, and I really don't remember a whole lot about like what family life was like, other than I feel like I had a pretty like sheltered childhood up until I was 10 years old, where I thought we had pretty much the perfect setup. Like I lived in a sweet house. I had a basketball hoop in my bedroom, and I would hang out with my dad all the time. I had a basketball hoop out in our driveway. Like, those are memories that stick out to me. Like, I remember waiting until dad would get home to play basketball with him. I remember my mom being home all the time. She was a stay-at-home mom. And so that was always good because mom was always there hanging out, taking care of me whenever I needed it. And dad was always away at work, but when he'd get home from work, he was always a best friend to me, would play basketball with me, would play video games with me. I remember playing Super Nintendo 64 down in the basement with my dad. And yeah, family life, I mean, when I was a kid was pretty, like I said, it was just like ideal. How could it be any better? and then as far as, did I see a divorce coming? No way. Never even thought about it. I knew that my parents argued and got in arguments, but I thought that was pretty normal. I figured, or I guess I just assumed or didn't think anything different, right? I didn't think anything of it. Like, yeah, parents are going to argue every once in a while, but I do remember my mom, and maybe you, but distinctly right now I'm remembering my mom, like whenever there would be an argument, she would like make a point to say to us, like, your dad and I love each other very much. We're not in trouble. There's nothing's going to happen to our family. Like, we're fine. Sometimes adults just get in arguments. I do remember that. And again, that could be fake, but
no, I think that's accurate.
yeah, I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was,
the divorce was a pretty traumatic thing for you.
it was very unexpected.
Yeah.
Yes, and very traumatic. Yeah, because I do feel like, especially after the divorce, I don't have a lot of memories, especially like those first couple of years after that divorce, or after the divorce happened. The main memories that I do have are painful memories. Like, they're hard memories. Stuff like the day that you woke us up and told us that you were getting a divorce, and that, Dad, you were going to be leaving, and things like I don't even remember what they're called. The guys that show up to repossess cars.
Mm-hmm.
That guy showing up to our front door to repossess our car. And then like having to leave our house because we couldn't stay in our house anymore. And we had to go live with my grandma and grandpa. Like, those are the prominent memories after that point. So like lots of just like painful, hurtful memories, stuff where I was really sad, really. Because like I said, like growing up, I felt like we had it ideal. Like, had my own basement that was basically my basement. My bedroom was down there, and like I said, I had a basketball hoop down there, video games down there, and so yeah.
So Brad, you like woke him up the day you were getting divorced and got him out of bed to
We were supposed to go to a football camp.
Okay.
My dad and I were supposed to get up and go to a football training. It was like some sort of a training camp that him and I were going to go to for me, and he didn't wake me up for it. He didn't wake me up for it, but I was ready for it. I was excited for it. And instead they brought us into the living room, and my dad had a bag packed, and I was like, are we going? Are we still going to football? But yeah.
Well, your
That's
memory. That's your memory.
Mhm.
I think it's pretty accurate too.
Yeah, and then you guys told us, and then it was really my mom talking.
Yeah.
My mom talking, saying, "Your dad and I are going to be divorced, are going to get divorced," something like that.
No.
And I've asked your dad to leave, and we were like, "What?"
That's rough.
Yeah. Yeah, and then everything changed.
Yeah, really quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't talk about this for some reason on the podcast with Triton, so I think we should talk about it here as we start transitioning into once me and your dad got together. I'm curious, as we start going into that, do you remember the first time that you and I met?
My memory of meeting you is meeting you in your house.
Okay.
That's my memory for some
Taylin's
reason.
first birthday?
Yeah. Like, it's specifically connected
Well, he
to
wasn't
Taylin.
He wasn't at Taylin's.
Oh, you're right. He wasn't there.
Specifically connected to Taylin, and I remember Taylin being a bald little baby. Like, I remember meeting you in that house in Lake Point, Overlake.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that's what I remember from meeting you. But
I guess that would make sense. That was like one of the first times.
You'd have been like 11 years old.
Yeah. 12. I don't know if we met outside of that, though. Did we meet? Like, we probably went to a Wednesday or Tuesday or whatever,
Park.
dinner or something, or...
Yeah, and I think maybe at Nana and Papa's house. Nana and
Okay.
Papa did something, and went
I
there.
remember one time, the first time I went with your dad on a Wednesday to take you guys to a park, and I didn't have any of my kids. That was one of the first couple times that I met you. I don't remember if it was the very first time. The very first time I met Rachel and Abby was at Taylin's first birthday party.
Oh, okay.
Your dad brought them. Right?
I don't remember. But
anyway, what I was going to bring up was, because we talked about you and Trenton being so close, but actually, like, one of the first times we got you guys together, just you and him, was when we went to Vegas.
Yep.
Trenton had really bad allergies and asthma, and I had a friend that told me about a homeopathic hospital down there that could take care of it. And so I had planned to go do that, and your dad was planning to take you to a BYU basketball game. Is that what it was?
March Madness. Yeah.
March Madness. Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Because my birthday's in March.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was actually the Mountain West Conference Championship
tournament. Yeah.
Yeah, Jimmer Fredette was playing. That was when Jimmer Fredette was playing for BYU, scoring 50 points
Crazy
a game.
Points.
And I had started a tradition with Abby of taking everybody on a special trip when they turned 12.
Yep.
And I wanted to try to keep it up. And Tiff was like, well, we had just gotten together. We'd been together for maybe 6 months. And she said, well, we don't really have money for you to take a one-on-one trip. If we can combine this and I can take Trenton, then we can do this together. So you were disappointed. I know you were disappointed that you didn't get a one-on-one trip, but it was all we could do. It was also...
We still ended up having to get 2 hotel rooms, though, I remember.
Oh, yeah. We had to get 2 hotel rooms or your mom wouldn't let you go.
Mm-hmm.
It was also one of my most painful financial memories that I've ever had, because like we were
so broke.
We were scraping together. I managed to get tickets to BYU's first game against TCU, and they won. And then BYU had a bye in the first round, so their first game was like the semifinal. No, it was no, that's right. Yeah, that was a quarterfinal, and then the second game was semifinal game. They played
San Diego State, I think, right?
They played New Mexico.
Oh.
And that's when Jimmer went off for like
Crazy.
50 some points. And it's one of the greatest college basketball games any guy's ever played. And then I got tickets to the championship against San Diego State, and they lost.
Yeah, that's right.
Kawhi Leonard.
Kawhi against Kawhi.
Yeah.
Because we did watch that one.
We did.
We didn't
did
see the New Mexico one.
We did not see the New Mexico one.
And we sat outside
We sat outside the arena, and each ticket, the cheapest ticket anybody had was like $350. and I just didn't have the money. Like, it wasn't a matter of like.
Weren't you planning on like scalping all of the tickets so you didn't buy any of them ahead of time?
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
I used the strategy of waiting to the last minute and
seeing if we could pick up tickets.
See if we could pick up tickets for scalpers that were left over. And it worked in the semifinal or in the quarterfinal games, and it worked in the championship game, ironically. And that semifinal game, it did not.
Mm-mm.
And like, because I think I got tickets to the championship game for like $50, and they were pretty good tickets.
Mm-hmm.
But I just didn't, like $700. No, like, yeah, it was a ridiculous amount of money for me at the time. And I remember feeling like such a loser because we were outside the stadium. It was cold. In Las Vegas for March. We weren't dressed for it.
Mm-mm.
And I couldn't get us in. And I was like using all of my resources. Jimmy Rex was down there. He was looking for me. He was trying to help me. And like we could not find tickets that we could buy, that I had money for. I think I had like, I can't remember the amount, but I didn't have enough cash. Like I just didn't have enough cash on me. And not only that, like I had nowhere to go to get cash. Not that there weren't ATMs. It's Vegas. I had nowhere to get it from.
I remember you calling me and saying, well, I guess you're going to have to come pick us up.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because we only had the one car,
But
too.
we
Yeah.
had to wait. I remember we had to wait for a little while before Tiff could come pick us up. I remember being freezing.
Yeah, it was cold, and
Freezing
I
out
just
there.
felt like such a loser of a dad. Anyways,
That was a rough time for
The main point
both
that
of
you
us.
were going to bring up is that Trenton and I did not used to be good friends.
Yeah.
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 That's what you're going to say, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was a rough trip because you and Trenton, neither one of you were about it during that time. It was actually super rough because I remember Brad and I feeling a little defeated because we're like, man, they don't really like each other. And I don't know if it's going to change, you know? It was crazy.
yeah, Trenton described it. Like, well, I'm curious because Trenton described his impression of you two, like very candidly. What was your impression of the two of you?
We've talked about this
Yeah.
before, so it's kind of hard again. It's like, I don't know. I remember remembering.
Right.
I do remember more than anything. I just remember being annoyed by Trenton. I thought he was rude. I thought he was disrespectful. I thought he was not conscientious. Like, definitely kind of looked down on him almost. Like, oh my goodness, this kid, like, he doesn't know anything. He doesn't know how to act. He's ripping ass in the car the whole way down and not taking ownership of it. I remember that pissed me off so bad. Not only was he ripping ass the whole way down in the car, he wouldn't admit that it was him. And I was like, come on, this kid. Because I remember I'm older than him. So there was a little bit of like, I got to be a big brother. Because I don't think I was mean to him. Like, I didn't want to be mean to him. But he just
I don't think you were ever mean to him.
Yeah, he just annoyed me.
Yeah.
Like, definitely annoyed me.
I do remember one time you punched him.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
when you were a little older.
Yeah.
You got mad at him and you punched him.
Yeah.
Like one time, like right in the chest.
Yeah, or kicked him or something.
Something, yeah. And that was the first time, and Tiff and I were like,
Oh.
It was actually him and Rachel both, if you remember.
Oh, I don't remember that.
It was both of them annoying you were like FaceTiming
Oh,
a girl.
yeah. Trenton and Rachel bugging me. Yeah. I
Yeah,
thought you
yeah.
meant me and Rachel.
No.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. and
I don't
got real
know.
pissed
I
at
think you
him.
just pushed Rachel or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I was like, Gabe did that?
I was insecure. I was a child talking to a girl. They were ruining it.
Makes sense.
But yeah, that's all I remember. I just remember thinking those things. Like, he was disrespectful, he was rude, and that he was annoying. Like, and it felt like he was one of those kids that was trying to be annoying.
He definitely was.
Yeah. He was trying to bug me, bug everybody. I didn't like that because I was never that kid.
Yeah.
I never was that kid. I always felt like I prided myself on being very respectful and conscientious. Those things that Trenton was not being.
Yeah. It was definitely always challenging. We talked about that. He always challenged authority and like the norm. Just tried to push boundaries.
Always.
Yeah.
still does.
It was really good for me.
Yeah.
It was really good for me.
Yeah.
You were like, the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
Who does he think he is?
Yeah. So Trenton's experience, so we talked a little bit about the experience from coming from the other side of his family. Yours was different than his.
Mm-hmm.
Explain so as we tried to get together as a family, get the kids together, there was resistance there. Talk a little bit about that. Like what was going on? What challenges do you remember because I remember at times feeling like we were just forcing this thing, that we were like, come on, we're going to be a family. We are a family. Yeah, you weren't born as siblings, but we're going to act like it, and we're going to be siblings. And what was especially the early memories of us getting together, trying to do trips, trying to do activities, things like that. What was going on there? From your memory.
Yeah, a lot of what I remember, and I think I just have such a different perspective on it now than if you would have talked to me about this, when I was actually going through it.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can look back at it and realize that a lot of the resistance was being fed to me. Like I was being told to resist, right? And not necessarily no, you need to be against this, but more just having conversations with my mom or my grandparents where they're saying things like, she's not your mom. Tiffany is not going to be your mom. She's barely even older than Abby. Or I don't know if that was ever said, but, things
Something like that.
along those lines. Like, she's not even that old. She's not even old enough to be your mom. Or then where the kids were considered same thing of, you don't feel like they're your siblings, do you? They're specifically because I came home from that trip from Las Vegas and definitely complained to my mom about how Trenton acted and told my mom that he bugged me, that he annoyed me. And so there were things like that said, they're not your siblings. You don't feel like they're your brothers and sisters, do you? And so then it was kind of
oh, I don't know. I don't
know. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. Rachel and Abby and Sam are my siblings.
Right.
They're my siblings. So what was the question exactly?
Well,
Where does that resistance come from? Yeah, that resistance comes from, I think a lot of it came from that. My mom and grandparents who I lived with for several years, 6 years after that, right? Almost 6 years, maybe not quite that long. From the time I was 12 to the time I was 17.
So 5 years,
Yeah.
5 or 6 years, something like that.
Well, it's just not one of the reasons we do this podcast is because as we talk to blended families are really common these days because divorce is really common. Getting married young is really common. So it's just, this isn't unique to our family.
Right.
And there are so many people out there that are going through what we went through 10 years ago or 5 years ago even, that think it's hopeless, and they give up before they even really try.
Yeah, because this reaction that you were getting is really common.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it. That one family is feeling threatened, as if, if a new relationship starts over here, then it's going to take away from the relationship that already exists, like that mother-son relationship or whatever, right? And then there's also some element of protecting their own culture, protecting their own. It's just protection, and really, it's fed. I've come to determine that when you see hurt actions coming, a lot of it's just coming from fear of the unknown, fear of whatever.
It's making me think of the boys telling us that. So Trenton and Javen told us that, though their dad let them come to our wedding, he told them to ruin, sabotage the wedding cake and all of this funny stuff, which just happens. It's a weird thing.
Yeah, there's resistance. That's what I was thinking as you were talking, is that it seemed like the whole attitude in general was, no, this is not what we wanted. This is not what we planned for. This is not This was not how this was supposed to
This
go.
was not part of the plan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My mom said that to me several times. Like, I have had many conversations with her where she said things like, this was not the plan. This is not where we were supposed to be. This is not where we're supposed to be, or where I thought we were going to be. So I just think there was overall resistance to the entire situation in general. And so much so that, like, it seemed like there was an effort to, like, let's see if we can just eliminate Brad from the situation. Like, let's just eliminate Brad from being family
Right.
for us kids.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, for sure.
like,
I remember that.
yeah.
I remember feeling that way.
Which was always weird to me, because it was like, no, like, he's my dad. And not only is he my dad, but he's my really good friend. And they challenged that. Like, they being family members, challenged that, saying he's not who you thought he was, or he's not the person that you think he is. He doesn't actually care about you the way you think that he does. And he's actually, based on these actions, or based on these things that we're seeing now, you can draw the conclusion that he's actually out to hurt you. Like,
but I remember the thing that I think is so amazing about you, Gabe. I remember you challenging your dad about these sort of things and coming to him and being like, this is what I'm hearing. So tell me your side of it. Like, explain yourself.
At a young age?
No,
Was it later
No,
on?
it was later.
It was a little bit later. It was after your dad was going to jail. And then because up until then, we were really like, how much of this do we bring up to them?
Yeah.
They're just kids.
Well,
like,
we believed that the best way to handle it was, I didn't believe I was going to win by doing a back and forth.
Right.
Like, I knew what was being said, because even though you didn't come out and say it, you said it in certain ways.
Oh, yeah.
right.
And
I kind of said it.
yeah, well, a couple times you just came out and flat out said it.
Conversations
Yeah.
where I definitely did.
Yeah, those hurt. But I had to keep reminding myself, okay, I'm the parent here. And even though the other parent is not really co-parenting the way I would love to do it, like, I'm not going to get into this back and forth. And I'm not like,
we both agreed dragging you guys into the middle of the drama and being like, oh, well, you want to know what we're finding out about them was just not the best thing to do, until it was when your dad got sentenced and we knew, or I guess it was official, that he was going to have to take the plea bargain and do jail time. I remember at that point I was like, okay, if you don't talk to the kids and tell them your side of the story, the fact that you're being sent to jail is going to justify everything in their head, that you are who they're being told you are. Yeah. And so I remember that being the first time we sat down, and you had already been thinking that, because you're like, explain yourself. You're going to jail. Like, why are you going to jail then? I don't understand
yeah, and
that.
why are you not the monster that they say you are?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, those were interesting times.
Those were such good conversations, though. Like, I feel like I feel like I grew so much as a person, like, having those conversations with you, where I got to hear and understand your perspective of everything that happened. Like, it was just very, very, very relieving almost. Like, I remember sitting in the back of the Armada on a drive home and, like, listening to you guys tell those stories and feeling like, oh my God, I'm so glad to hear this. Like I knew that there was more to this, but I've never heard this. I've never understood this. And I think it kind of happened at the perfect time, because I don't know, because I remember being like 16, and I don't know that I would have understood it as well as I did.
Yeah, if you could have processed it.
Yeah, I just don't think I would have understood it, because you guys even broke down the real estate market and what happened in the real estate crash, and how you put yourself in these positions that were really, really, really unfortunate, bad positions to be put in, right? Not that, oh, you're a victim, you know, but.
Do you feel like I ever acted like I was a victim?
No, you took like, you were overly accountable, it felt like.
Yeah.
A lot of the times, especially when I started understanding that stuff, I'd listen to your side of the story, and then I'd be like, well, wait a minute. Like,
I always feel that way
what
too.
the fuck?
I'm like, what? Okay, but tell the whole story.
Yeah.
Like, quit making yourself sound so
Yeah,
bad.
well, that sounds like you were doing your best. Like, that didn't sound like you were trying to screw anybody over. That didn't sound like you were trying to. Because it felt like the story that was the picture that was painted for me was always that you had done these actions. You had done it with malicious intent.
Right.
You knew what you were doing.
Right.
That was the story.
Yeah.
He's too smart. You think he didn't know what was going on. You think he was doing these things and he was intentionally hurting these people.
Right.
He knew that the market was going to crash and all this was going to happen.
Well, it was
It
never
was
that,
silly.
right? It was never that. It was always he was stealing people's money.
Yeah.
He intentionally stole people's money. He was dishonest. He lied.
But the thing that doesn't add up about that is the money was gone. The money went to the projects and the money was now gone. Like if you're going to maliciously like defraud people out of money, you're doing it for a gain.
Right.
And then you usually have something from that.
Try to.
I mean, if you're going to steal people's money to go invest it in a bad investment deal, then that's
They're not
dumb.
very good at stealing money. It's true.
Well, the thing that I've always been really I want to be very honest about is that I did lie.
Yeah.
And I've always told you
Yes.
that. I did lie.
Yep.
And I did deceive people. And it's hard to say I didn't do it with bad intentions because who lies with good intentions? And
Well, you did it to protect your own ego.
Yes.
You were trying to
yes.
appear as if you had it all together.
Yes. The thing that is remarkable to me is to tell people, like to explain to people how like poorly of a business, like how poor of a business I ran. Like I ran just a really shitty business. And people are like, no, you didn't. Like you were doing a lot of business. No, you don't understand. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors there. and a lot of
You may have
ego.
generated a lot of revenue.
I definitely generated a lot of revenue. And but I ran a poor business. And that's why like I see it now because I crashed as hard as I did and I made the commitment that I'm just going to be honest and I'm just going to figure out and try to fix these things little by little, that now it's really easy for me to see other businesses that are run really poorly but look like they're not because there's a lot of money involved. And I comment I shouldn't say it's easy for me to see because there are always levels of deceit and fraud when or deceit, I should say. Fraud is with the intention of like
Stealing money.
Stealing money. There's levels of deceit where it really has to do with ego and appearances. And then there's the next level where you're taking stuff from people to try to build your own stuff. And I wasn't guilty. I didn't do that. But I pled guilty to fraud, to communications fraud, which basically is lying. If you ever lie in the course of business, you've committed communications fraud.
Yeah, but they directly said, I'll never forget sitting in the courtroom when you were being sentenced and then taken to jail. It was this surreal moment because it was like it was in slow-mo, as it was happening. It was the craziest experience. But as the judge was reading off his charges, like the bailiff has already come over and was like shackling him up and chaining him up. And I'm listening to everything the judge is saying. And I'm like, he didn't do that. He didn't do that. He didn't do that.
Yeah,
he didn't do that.
It's an interesting game that they play.
And he just pled guilty to all of these things that he didn't do. And so it was a weird, it was the moment that I was like, that I had the real realization that like our justice system is far from just. Like far from just. It's really just about who you know and how deep your pockets are.
And how well you can play the game.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
how well you can play the game.
Because specifically communications fraud is deceiving people for personal gain. That you deceive people for personal gain over and over.
Yeah. It's interesting. Well, the one lesson I think that because like Tiff said, like we're doing this because blended families is still a real thing. It's a common
Mhm.
thing. And I think we actually did a pretty good job of not getting into the back and forth for a long time.
For sure.
And I think it did help preserve a relationship with you guys because we just refused to engage in it. And so when our time together, but this is just my opinion. So when we had our time together, we didn't even talk
It
about it.
wasn't about that.
We
Yeah.
focused on what we were doing, who we were,
We just focused on having fun. Like,
and being together.
that was our thing.
real
Like,
connection.
what
Would
can we
you-
do to have fun?
Yeah. I mean, your memory, I know it's hard to play what if, but what do you think of that? Like, because we avoided it. The other side got down and dirty on it. And it's not a
Well, I
us
think
versus
I
them.
think
I'm
it,
just-
you can, I was as you were saying that I was thinking it's funny because as that plays out, like as that has played out, and I don't know if this is how it would go in every situation, but me, as far as me and my relationships with people, I have a far greater relationship with you guys and my family here, right, the Lancasters, than I do with anybody on my mom's side. Really, like, and I think that just speaks to itself. Like, I was thinking, and this because I was thinking about you guys expressing to me and sharing your perspective and how enlightening that was for me. And I was thinking one of the reasons that was so powerful for me was I saw a lot of you, Brad, in me as a kid, like all growing up. And I looked at you, my dad, as somebody that I looked up to, that was an example to me, was somebody that I wanted to be like, that I aspired to be like, right? You were my dad. And you are my dad. And so then when I was getting so much negativity from these other influences in my life, my grandparents, my uncles, my aunts, telling me things like, your dad was intentionally hurting you. Your dad was intentionally lying to hurt you and us, and that he is evil. He's narcissistic. He is a pathological liar. Like, all those labels were being thrown out a lot. Again, this is me now being 23 years old, being able to look back. I definitely am almost held on to that of like, and I would run through the scenario in my head and be like, if my dad is all those things, does that mean that I also have the potential and am going to do that? Am I going to hurt my family in the future? Am I going to hurt my wife in the future? Am I going to hurt my kids in the future? And I remember being a little kid thinking, I'm never going to get married. If this is what I'm destined to do, I'm never going to do this. And then when I got to hear your side of things, it was so easy for me to then put myself in your shoes and go, well, I would do the exact same thing, but it wasn't from a place of being evil or a place of, again, malicious intent. It was from a place of you were doing your best. I can so easily put myself in your situation and see myself making the exact same decisions.
Yeah, because you understand my perspective.
Yeah.
And not to justify it.
No, like, yeah, that I fucked up. You did things that you probably should not have done, or maybe weren't the best things to do. But man, I could so easily see myself doing the exact same thing.
And you don't know what to do, so you're covering your tracks,
Right.
like, just to try to make it so
Scrambling,
nobody's freaking out and keeping everyone calm. And yeah, when I first heard his story, I was like, man, you're being really hard on yourself. Like, I think I would have done the same thing too, being as young as you were, and that.
Inexperienced,
Yeah.
generating a lot of revenue,
Yeah.
having probably way too much confidence in your own ability to go
Right.
out and earn, and right, like, there was no doubt in your mind about what you were able to do, even if it all did go wrong.
Right.
You knew you
Right.
could probably go out and generate enough deals that you were going to make up for it.
Yeah. In fact, that was always kind of my fallback. I was like, well, if everything hits the fan, like, I can always go out and list houses and, make 30, 40,000 a month. No problem.
Until your real estate license
until I
got
didn't have a
taken
real
away.
estate license, and I was like, oh,
I wanted to comment on
hurts.
what you were saying earlier, Gabe, about that identifying with what they were saying about your other parent. I remember reading a book early on in our relationship because, I mean, there were times I wasn't always super confident about everything that we were doing, you know? And it was this book, I think it was called Split Worlds. Do you remember when I read
yeah,
that?
we still have it on our
Yeah. And
bookshelf.
it was the first time that I was able to have the perspective that, wow, both sets of our kids have two different worlds, and they both feel like their worlds do not intertwine, like their worlds do not commingle with each other. And that was also the first time I read that is an actual thing, that if you talk negatively about
and it's not healthy,
that child's other parent, they internalize that as well. I'm 50% that person. So if that person is bad, I'm 50% bad.
At least 50% that person.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times I felt like I was more my dad than anybody else.
Yeah.
I could look at myself in the mirror and be like, holy cow, I look a lot like my dad.
That was the first time, because I can't say honestly that we were perfect. Like, we definitely reacted to the other parents like fucking with us. This is the best way to put it, because I felt like it happened, and I felt like we reacted, and we probably said things that we shouldn't have at times.
Yeah.
But after I read that, I remember going to your dad and saying, like, we really can't do that. We have to make sure we're not doing that.
Well, not only that, I went to my siblings, I went to my family, and I said, we're not getting in this tit for tat. We're not going to do it.
Well, that's why I wanted to share that, because we've talked about this before, and if there's any value that, you know, our experience, if there's anyone out there that's really listening to this, that's right in the heat of a terrible split family situation, and regardless of how much you despise your previous significant other, from my perspective, being a kid, that was one of the more harmful things that anybody ever did, was focus so much on trying to make my parent a bad guy.
Well, the courts call it alienation, and that's what therapists call it as well, parental alienation, where you're trying to separate the child from the parent, and you're trying to do it psychologically. Some people do it physically, like they'll just withhold, and that happened as well.
Move away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The move away thing didn't happen, but the withhold, like just not letting you come, that happened. But then the psychological alienation, I think, is even more damaging. So, and I've heard I've heard other parents doing that about the divorced parent. And I am still, to this day, when I hear parents doing it, I cringe. And if I know them well enough, I will set them straight and let them know, you can't do this. I understand that it's hard. You don't like the other parent. That child is part them.
Yeah. And I think there's another layer to this as well, especially where you were concerned, because so Brad was LDS when he was married to his first wife. And then when he left, he also got excommunicated from the church. And the kids, you guys were still active, still going to church. And I was just reminded of the first time we went to breakfast together. I just unconsciously ordered a coffee, because that's what I do when we would go to breakfast. And I didn't even think twice about it, honestly. But I remember your dad coming to me later and was like, it really bothered. Was it you, Gabe? Or was it
Gabe? Yeah,
it was
Probably
Gabe.
was.
Yeah.
Sounds like something.
It was that same trip to Las Vegas.
Is that what it
We had
was?
breakfast, yeah.
Yeah. And I felt like there were also lots of opportunities, because we had alcohol in the house. We had coffee in the house. And you guys would come over. And I remember your dad having these conversations with me, like my kids feel like this, like the spirit can't be in our house with all this stuff here. And
Rachel said that to me. She said, well, Dad, how can the spirit be in your house if there's alcohol there?
so we really had to navigate these things, and it was challenging. I'm like, because I really felt that in order to have an authentic relationship with you guys, it was important for us to be authentic and not be something else when you guys were over at the house. But in the beginning, it was hard. It was
but
hard.
it was very good.
Yeah.
I mean, very good for me as a kid to see that. I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful that I got exposed to that. Because like, oh my God, like just hearing that I'm a 12 to 13, 14-year-old kid sitting with somebody at breakfast who gets coffee and I'm getting that uncomfortable because someone's drinking a cup of coffee in front of me. Like, God.
It seems so like foreign that
Oh,
like,
it's so silly. It's just silly. So I'm very grateful for
well,
it.
it's hard to believe that that was ever a version of Gabe.
Yeah.
Because you're like one of the biggest coffee drinkers that I know now.
Yeah,
So
I know. I
funny.
love coffee.
Oh, it is great stuff. Okay, so you got introduced. One of the things that we talked about with Trenton was what are some of the areas that number one you thought we did or do well in blending families, and also just curious, like what are some areas that you think, having seen how we did things, that you would say maybe do different, or like say don't do this, or I don't know, things that not criticism, or I mean you can criticize us too if there's criticism.
Definitely
We're
open
not,
to that.
We're not immune to that. So
I don't know. It's hard for me to really have much of an opinion because I'm no expert. By no means am I any expert. I'm just a child
but you
who's
lived
lived
it.
in an experience.
Yeah.
So and that's the other thing is I do my best to be very present and grateful. So I'm very grateful for where I'm at today. And if things had been different, then I wouldn't be here today. And I'm so wildly grateful that I get to live the life that I get to live today. So what did you do right? God, everything that got us here. You know what I mean? Like seriously, it would be, I don't think I can even think of anything that I would say, oh, this is what you guys should have done.
Are there any favorite traditions or any favorite rituals?
Yeah,
or
thinking about the listener,
like
something that I could
like
say.
something that we did that like you'd say we did
Or
this, and
advice
definitely
to
do this.
either parents of a blended family
and
or kids
too. We asked
like,
Trenton that, and Trenton got stumped on that one, like advice for kids.
As far as like traditions that I thought were really beneficial and helpful, like you said, I'm very glad that you were just authentically yourself in your home, especially being a kid who did have that separation of at one home it's LDS, at another home it's entirely not. I was really grateful for that because it gave me exposure to something that is a different life, a different perspective, a different way to live life. So I was grateful for that.
I will add a quick caveat to that, just because. So even though we had alcohol in the house, we didn't drink in front of you guys, for a long time, because we didn't feel like that would be appropriate.
You did respect us. You did.
Right.
Yeah, you guys you specifically were awesome about that. Looking at that situation now, being an adult, man, like that would be a hard situation to deal with, because I would just want to be like, let the kid experience life. Like, guess what? We drink. Guess what? We're adults. We drink. Get used to it, right?
But if you thought about, like, you had a kid that was kind of feeling uncomfortable about coffee, alcohol is like 10 times worse in their mind, right?
Yes. So you did it right. That's why I say, like, so I always look back on our like weeknights that we would go hang out, because we did the custody agreement you had was that you got one weeknight where you could take us out to dinner or spend time with us or whatever.
And every other weekend.
Yes. And I always loved those opportunities when we would go do something fun. It's very easy to like people when you go and do something fun together, like, as long as everybody's having fun.
Yeah.
And I just think that's kind of my personality too. I love playing games. I love hanging out with people and having fun, playing sports, or playing, like, just going bowling or going and playing laser tag or any of those
going
things.
to the park. We did that a lot.
Yeah, I feel like that's where I really, like, that's where I started forming a better relationship with Javen, and that's where I started, like, that's how I started to love Taylin and see her running around just as this little girl that I'd get to play with, and Javen, this little brother that was just such a cute little kid, and Trenton eventually, right?
Well, you
just
and
hanging
Trenton
out.
actually did bond
Yes.
by playing together.
Yes, by playing games. Right.
Yeah.
We'd play that crazy game in the backyard at wherever that place is called.
Overlake.
Overlake.
Yeah.
Where we would hit the ball against the house.
Funny, Trenton brought that
Swinging
up
on the
too.
swing. Yeah, I mean that was so good for us. So good
Yeah.
for us to be able to connect and be creative together and just be kids.
Yeah.
Be kids and hang out. So
I felt like if we could just have fun together, then we wouldn't have to focus on all of the drama that was happening
Talk
all
about
around
heavy
you guys.
stuff.
Yeah, we were just having fun.
Well, we did have that conscious, Tiff and I had that conscious decision that, look, we can't just sit around and talk. Well, what are you feeling? What are you thinking? No, let's just go play. Let's just go be together. Let's go put.
what's interesting too, and not to cut you off, but I have several distinct memories of my mom resenting that. I would have conversations with her where she would say things along the lines of, well, isn't your dad so lucky he just gets to be the fun parent? He's just the fun parent all the time now. All you ever do with your dad is just go have fun. And I remember being a kid and being like, what do you want me to do about that? Like, yeah, it is fun. It is fun. It's good. And then at the same time thinking, well, Mom, we can go have fun too. We can go do fun things too. But she would resent that. She would resent that we would go do that.
I will say that there was a certain point where we felt with both the kids, because in the beginning, we only had my kids 50% of the time.
Oh, yeah.
Until the divorce was final, oddly enough, but which took a long time. But we started feeling like if we didn't have this fun, eventful, amazing thing planned for the weekend or on a Wednesday or whatever, that all of you guys were kind of like, well, this is dumb. This is boring. What are we supposed to be doing?
Yeah, there was definitely some pressure.
And we were kind of like, oh, what did we create here?
Well, and the other thing, like, we weren't making a lot of money at the time. And like we did things on a budget.
Of course.
Costco pizzas.
We got really, yeah. Remember how many times we went to Costco for pizza?
Court, yeah.
Food court for pizza.
But as a kid, I loved that.
Well, we ate pizza a lot, and like we just made the decision. Look, this might not be the best thing for everybody's health, but we can feed more people with pizza.
We figured
than
that out
anything
earlier.
else.
We can order a couple pizzas, and we can feed 7 kids with pizza.
But if we go to dinner, like if we go to even Denny's, like it's
Expensive.
it's twice as much as pizza. So we're gonna eat a lot of pizza, and we did a lot of stuff outside. We did a lot of games at parks. We bowled. Bowling's cheap.
Yeah.
We
playing games at the park, going to parks,
doing hikes,
I was gonna say hikes,
yeah,
hikes are good.
doing stuff that like was minimal expense, and I mean playgrounds. Gosh, take everybody to the playground and let everybody just run until they're
And have
just
a football
tired.
or
You guys played freeze tag and soccer and all kinds of dodgeballs, and like I mean you were young and you just wanted to play and have fun, and I always thought we were so lucky because you guys all did love to play.
Mm-hmm.
Like you, Rachel, Sam, Javen, Trenton, Taylin, you guys all love to play.
Yeah.
That was a lucky thing.
Yeah. The other thing that I remember we did intentionally was like we made sure that like the kids got like, you know, to be alone with their parent once in a while. But I remember also saying like, we only have so many days to like be together as a family and bond as a family. So I wanted to consciously like get all you guys together and like have that time together to get to know each other, to have fun together, to because it wasn't like a normal family where you got to be around all those siblings all the time.
24/7. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that was so this, you know, we were in Stansbury Park and you guys were in Sandy. We would put Trenton, Javen, and Taylin in the Armada or in the minivan, and we would drive into Sandy and say, okay, everybody load up.
Because it was the fun time for them too.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to go do something fun. Let's take everybody and go do something
we didn't
fun.
work that night, and so this is when we're all doing it. And I mean, it wasn't always an easy thing on our end in Stansbury Park to get everybody in the car. Like there was resistance there, and I don't know, we have to go in to see the kids again. Like, but by and large, like once we got there, and like it was always such a good thing, always such a good memory.
Well, and the other thing, we talked about this before, but I think that really mattered is that you were consistent with it.
Yeah.
You just kept showing up.
Yeah.
And I think that's how all of the stories were, I guess, rewritten, right? Or it's that, yeah, whatever. I can hear all these stories about what you think is going on, but I see my dad every week.
Yeah, and he
Yeah.
just keeps showing up. If he's really trying to hurt me,
He would have done it by now. He
Like,
would have done something way worse by now.
this is a long game.
Why is he taking me bowling so much? Why are we still just having fun?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Why can we just hang out just like we used to?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the other thing, like to, as a parent who was feeling that alienation, there were, and this is like, I coach other parents on this, or like talk to them and counsel them that there's got to be a big picture. Like there's got to be an end game, like truly. And the end game is now. Like I've got these adult kids. We've got these adult kids that love us and that love having a relationship with us.
Yeah, the irony is, to this day, I'm convinced that the reason your dad went to jail is because we made the decision to fight for you kids. Because it had been a few months since your dad had seen the kids, and I was like, "What the hell? My ex-husband's getting my kids 50% of the time, and you already have a divorce decree, like a court order that says you should have them every other weekend, and you hadn't seen them in like 3 or 4 months." So we talked about filing a order to show cause to enforce parent time and the divorce decree that was already in place. And your dad looked at me. I remember, I'll never forget it. We went to the courthouse to file it ourselves. We didn't have the money to pay an attorney to do it. But your dad was crying like a lot. He was so distraught by the whole thing and was convinced that like he wasn't going to have a relationship with you guys. And I was like, you will if you fight for it. And anyway, we're at the courthouse and we had done all this research online on how to draw it up. And we needed to go file it with the courts. And he looks at me and he's like, you know that this is going to open up a can of worms, don't you? And I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. Like, we're going to do it anyway. And he was like, are you sure? He's like, you're going to stick with me when they come back and come after me. And I was like, yeah, I am. Because it's wrong, you know? And so we filed it. And then I don't even think it was 2 weeks later when we had a sheriff show up to the door saying that he was pressing criminal charges.
It was actually, it was a little longer, but it felt like it was an immediate reaction.
Yeah.
And when you looked at the way the whole timeline went, it did.
But yeah, I had no idea what that actually meant. But I still, even the day he went to jail, like we would have done it the same. Like we wouldn't have said, oh, if somebody would have came to us from the future and said, if you do this, you're going to spend 8 months in jail. We would have done it. We would have said, okay.
As long as she would have said, you're sure it's him, right? Just kidding, baby. So,
which again comes back to the whole message of like, I'm just grateful that we are where we are today. So
yeah. There would have been times I would have traded you places in the jail cell.
Yeah.
So
I asked this question, and any advice to kids like that are going through like ugly divorces? If you could, or like if you could go back and talk to yourself, like your 11, 12-year-old self, what would you tell kids or yourself in that situation?
Well, I have done that before.
I know.
So, and what I have said to my younger self is it is okay. Like it's all going to be okay. And better yet, it's going to be so much better than okay. It's going to be great. It's going to be amazing, you know? Everything is going to be all right. It's going to be okay. Spending all this time stressing out and trying to fix everybody's problems and and solve the relationship between mom and dad and take care of your siblings, and like you don't you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it all. You don't have to worry about it all. It's gonna be okay. Show up as your best self, and like it's gonna be okay. That's that's what I thought. Because I just remember being a kid, freaking out so bad. Like, what does this mean? You know, what does this mean for my life? What does this mean for who I'm gonna be, or what's gonna happen to my siblings, or what's gonna happen to my mom, or what's gonna happen to my dad? And you know what? Like, yeah, my dad went to jail, and yeah, we got foreclosed on, and we had our car repossessed, and we had so many days where we were crying and fighting, and guess what? It's okay. It's all okay. It's all worked out. And it's just a small, like in the grand scheme of things, it's just another day. This is just another challenge that I'm gonna get, that I get the chance to get through, to make it through. So
I just have to say, I am so extremely proud of you, Gabe, because
Thank you.
the thing about you is you've always carried so much weight. Even though you weren't the oldest sibling, you something about being the patriarch, right?
Mhm,
You
for sure.
were you always carried this burden of like you needed to take care of things, you needed to handle things. You'd be this little guy, like 11, 12 years old, feeling like you had the weight of the world
Yeah.
on your shoulders, and in a lot of ways you did. And you've just always been open to, you were just always so receptive to like what the world had to offer. And I watched you just blossom into this human being that started like thinking for yourself and just doing the work, like doing the inner work,
Yeah.
you know, to just figure out who you are and become the best Gabe that you could be. And it's just been an amazing process to watch you like step into
Thank you.
being you.
And guess what? The work is never done.
No, it's not.
Still working on it.
So as you've grown, son, and become like a man, you've turned to yoga, and one of the things we focus on and we talk a lot about is consciousness. And explain real quick or take as long as you want, your like where consciousness, yoga, where all of that plays a role in your life, where how you were introduced to it, and what it means to you now.
I was introduced to yoga because of Tiffany. And I resisted it a lot. I thought yoga was just weird. Thought it was something that girls do. And I think I don't really think that I started doing yoga until I went on my LDS mission. I think I may have done a class or something with you before.
Oh yeah, you sent him the sun salutation.
But Tiffany gave me sun salutation A, I believe, on a piece of paper that had little pictures of all the different poses, and as an idea for something that I could do on my mission for a workout, something to help me
in your room or whatever.
Yeah, because it doesn't require equipment, doesn't require a lot of space. So I took that with me and started doing it. I did it on my mission a lot, actually, because there wasn't much else I could do, and I had that, and I had my jump rope. But I would do that and didn't do much with meditation or anything to it, but I just thought, oh, this feels good. This is good. I like being flexible. I had not been flexible in my life before, so that was good for me. And then I came home from an LDS mission and went through a whole transformation of like what spirituality meant to me in general. Basically completely turned away from the LDS church and then had the question in front of me, well, what is spirituality? Is there God? What is consciousness? What does that even mean? What is my relationship with God? What is my relationship with the universe and my surroundings and my spirit? Do I have a spirit? Do I have all that stuff came into question? And I think then, just like slowly but surely living at your house, I think I started doing yoga classes up in the yoga studio more. I would just be engaged in them. I felt like after I got through the initial hurt and pain of coming home from my mission and kind of abandoning what I knew as my spiritual understanding, then I was very open. Like I was very open to, I remember talking and writing down ideas of like, maybe I should go to other churches. Maybe I should go, go check out some other churches, go check out some other things. Because while I didn't know what I did believe, I did know that I did not believe what I had been raised in. That was not it. But there had to be something, is what I thought. So
You didn't believe there was nothing.
yeah, I thought there was something. Or maybe not. But I was very open to the idea that there was. And I was also okay with the idea that maybe there wasn't anything.
Yeah.
I was. And I still am, really.
Yeah.
Because I am in no way do I have it all figured out, or do I have any, firm understanding and can say this is what I believe and this is. So my relationship to consciousness now is I've gone through yoga teacher training, and that was really good. And yoga was a big part of my life for like a 1.5 to 2 year time period. And then probably for like the last year or so, I haven't been a super active yoga practitioner, as far as like having a yoga mat down and being really intentional about like, okay, now I'm moving
The
through
asanas.
this. Yeah, moving through this movement practice. But I think that actually has been like the evolution of what consciousness means to me, that it doesn't necessarily mean I have to be doing all of the yoga poses. It's more and more about what is my relationship with myself and my highest self, and then how then am I connected to everyone and everything around me. So, and I think that feeds into yoga, because I do think that we all are interconnected. And through yoga and meditation, and psychedelics, I feel like I have gained a better understanding of like we are also very, very, very connected through energy or whatever you want to call it. And at the same time, we can be very, very, very disconnected. And for me, it's very important for me to always be checking in with myself. That's what I feel like that's what consciousness is. I don't know if I'm making sense at all.
Asana is, absolutely you are. I think asana is only one limb of yoga, right?
Yeah.
There are many ways to achieve enlightenment, and yoga just happens to be one of the ways.
How
that
many
I think
limbs of yoga are there?
8.
Yeah. You happen to be going through training.
There
so
you
I remember that.
Well, I even think Trenton and I used to talk about how yoga asana a lot of the time is about building strength in elongated positions, in longer ranges of motion. Because when we're stretching and like increasing mobility, the tears that are happening in our muscles are actually very similar to the tears that are happening when we're doing strength training. They're at least somewhat connected, right? I think the sensation I experience when I'm in a really, really, really deep stretch is pretty similar to when I'm like super burned out after doing a really heavy lifting set. I think they're actually pretty similar. So I think the movement practice itself is just like just a part of it, right? Like,
It's what someone thousands of years ago or 800 years ago, whatever it is, they were like, they figured it out. This is a way for you to connect to your body and thus connect to spirit.
Yep.
And it works.
I think you can do that in a lot of different ways, I think.
For sure. Yeah, the one thing that I've noticed about yoga, and like it really is, it is not just a practice on the mat.
No.
And this is a hard thing for somebody who's only experienced yoga in like a gym setting where they're just in, and they just go in and they do these poses. You may not have even done yoga. You may have just done
A workout.
And what I've come to appreciate is like I can practice yoga right now.
Yep.
I can practice yoga every morning without moving a muscle. I can practice yoga at night as I'm getting in bed. I can practice yoga as I have a conscious conversation with my wife or my children, because I can be aware. I can truly observe. I can observe my own reactions, and just that one thought that I am not my thoughts and actions. I am actually the thing that can observe the thoughts and reactions.
And your ego.
And my ego.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can see it. And so that idea is a core tenet of yoga, and especially the tantric path that we've all been taught on, that it's not about being an ascetic that goes into the woods and removes themselves from the world and removes themselves from being a householder. It's about being somebody who is in the world, and is operating within this reality, but at the same time isn't. It's this idea of non-duality, that it's not either or. There is a higher, a true way. And
It made me think of that scripture, or isn't there a scripture that says "Be in the world, not of the world"?
yeah, that's a common thing taught throughout.
Right?
I don't know if it's scripture, but yeah, the idea of being in the world but not of the world. It's also like the core tenets of like the Jedi,
Yes.
like in Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's just, look, you've got to be here. You've got to be able to operate within this realm, but not.
If you're going to be helping, if you're going to transcend your ego and you're going to raise your vibration and you're going to, figure this thing out, this whole idea of ascension, if you're going to impact the world, you have to be in the world. Because if you're up in the side of a mountain in a cave and you're meditating all day, what impact are you having on the world? Like, how are you helping the world transcend? How are you raising the vibrational frequency of the planet? You're not.
You're not.
You're having zero impact on anybody.
And the cool thing that's come to me recently, I used to believe that if that whatever ideology you're going to follow, that's the ideology you're going to follow. The cool thing about yoga is that it's not really an ideology, because you can be Catholic and be a yogi. You can be a Mormon and be a yogi. Like you can be.
There's not really rules.
There's not rules. There's not like it really is just simply a way of being.
Yeah.
And so
it's
you
an
can
offering for you, and you can accept it or you cannot, and it doesn't really matter. Nobody's like,
a good way to put it.
And it's all your own work. It's you're doing your own work, so nothing else matters. Like if you're judging anything, if you're attaching anything, that's your work to be healed within you. Like,
and it can work in any system. It can work in any the yoga of real estate. We try to practice the yoga of real estate.
Yes.
That's a book you have to write, unless somebody else already has. The yoga of real estate investing, like the yoga of working out. There is, anyway, there's that element. Well, we're beyond an hour. Anything else? And we try to keep these within an hour.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Anything else you want to share as a child of a blended family? Anything else you wanted to share coming in?
No, I think my overall message is what I was saying. It's like, it's going to be okay. Show up, do your best. That's all that you can do, and trust that it's going to work out.
Like, there's our alarms. And ironically enough, that alarm that goes off at 3:33, this is a reminder that I have to myself. And so it's this idea that I'm innocent. I'm doing the best I can. I'm still worthy of love. And I can make wrong choices every day, but I can always show up as my best.
And that is inner work. Rewiring the negative story.
Patterns.
Yeah, and I think that's all that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, we didn't call it the inner work 12 years ago. We now call it the inner work. We use different language, but we're basically doing a lot of the same Tiff and I were attracted to this basic idea of consciousness and then figuring out what truth is, what authenticity is, what being your best self is. So love you, son.
Love you too.
Very grateful, like Tiff said, and for all you've done. And you did carry a heavy load. You still do, but you carry it so beautifully. And I realized that, like,
got bigger shoulders.
Right. Well, I just realized, like, there was a time where I wanted to take all that away, but I realized, like, now I can be so grateful for it, because without it, you wouldn't be who you are.
Exactly.
And when you, our kids, I think my kids and my kids, Tiff's kids, my kids, all of our kids are some of the most resilient humans I know. And because of everything they learned to get through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautifully said.
And I just don't spend much time regret.
Right. And that's because you're resilient.
Yeah. Yeah, true. But I think that's so important, for anybody, any kid or
Anybody.
yeah, just don't
spend a lot of time in regret.
Yeah. I do have to say, I'm like, really, not only did we get to this place where all of our kids are friends and like we can go and spend a week in St. George in the same house under the same roof, and it's fine. Everybody gets along. Everybody loves each other. Like, that's not a common thing for families, especially big families. But I was telling Brad, I'm just going to say this really quick, like, we went on a walk while we were there, and I was like, man, how did we get so blessed to, like, seriously have, like, such amazing kids? Like, I really think that, like, every single one of our kids, they're all amazing in different ways, but they're all so freaking amazing. And, like, how did that happen? Like, what are the odds of that? I'm just still blown away by it all the time.
Yeah, me too.
Joe Rogan says all the time, like, the coolest people he knows had really fucked up childhoods. So I tell myself that. Look, I went through a lot of shit in my childhood, but I think that all that did was prepare me to be an amazing adult.
Yeah.
Yeah,
An
with a
even more
great
prepared
perspective.
adult.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you do have such a great perspective and such a healthy approach to adversity. So
Parents, don't spend too much time trying to keep your kids away from going through some hurt.
Yeah.
It
And
happens.
adversity. It's crucial for them to learn how to.
Very important.
Yeah.
no, there's a good mic drop.
Even though I'm not a parent, but I'm a kid.
Perfect. You're
gonna-
qualified to talk
you're gonna
on
have
it.
Kids. Gabe is now married to beautiful. We didn't talk much about Taylor. We're so grateful for Taylor in our life. She brought so much just absolute joy and happiness into our life. I know into yours too, obviously.
Awesome.
So, really
In
grateful.
a lot
to
of
have
ways,
her.
she reminds me of myself. Just like unapologetically herself.
She is.
Yeah.
I
True.
love it.
Well, all right. Thank you all for listening, and make sure to send us any questions. Do the whole like, subscribe, blah, 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 share thing. Yeah, like, subscribe, and share. Okay. Thank you, guys. See you next time. This podcast is brought to you by the True Agency Real Estate Team. If you are looking to buy, sell, or especially right now, invest, by the way, you should be investing in real estate right now, contact us. Or if you're a real estate agent that is committed to personal growth, we need to talk. We are looking to grow our real estate team. So if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest, or you're a real estate agent and you need growth, contact us. Also brought to you by True Studios. If you are in Tooele County or nearby, we record, edit, produce, distribute all parts of your podcast. We give you the space, the time, the expertise so that you can have your own podcast. All you have to do is show up, be there, and then we handle everything else. So if you've always wanted to have a podcast, don't know how to start, don't know how to do it, get a hold of us. Reach out. You can reach out to us at True Studios or True Conscious Couple or True Agency Team. Reach out to me, reach out to Tiffany, reach out to Trenton. All of us are available. We would love to help you get that out. Thank you so much.